Hey everybody, welcome to another story time. It's once again the Twits by Roald Dahl with illustrations by Quentin Blake. We're up to chapter 13. Mr. Twit gets a horrid shock. Mr. Twit, who thought he had seen his ugly wife for the last time, was sitting in the garden celebrating with a mug of beer. Silently, Mrs. Twit came floating down. When she was about the height of the house above Mr. Twit, she suddenly called out at the top of her voice, "Here I come, you grisly old grunion, you rotten old turnip, you filthy old frumpet!" Mr. Twit jumped as though he'd been stung by a giant wasp. He dropped his beer. He looked up. He gaped. He gasped. He gurgled. And a few choking sounds come out of his mouth. "I'll get you for this!" shouted Mrs. Twit, and she was floating down right on top of him. And she was purple with rage and slashing the air with her long walking stick, which she had somehow managed to hang on to the whole time. "I'll swish you to a swazzle," she shouted. "I'll swash you to a swizzle. I'll nash you to a nozzle. I'll nosh you to a nazzle." And before Mr. Twit had time to run away, the bundle of balloons and petticoats and fiery fury landed right on top of him, lashing out the stick and cracking him all over his body. Wow. He didn't see that coming, did he, Harry? This is chapter 14. The House, the Tree, and the Monkey Cage. But that's enough of that. We can't go on forever watching these two disgusting people do disgusting things to each other. We must get ahead with the story.
I want to see it. I can't see it.
Here is a picture of Mr. Twit's house and garden. Some house. It looks like a prison. And not a window anywhere. Can you see the windows?
No. It must be pretty dark.
It will be. I wonder where their light source comes from. "Who wants windows?" Mr. Twit had said when they were building it. "Who wants every Tom, Dick, and Harry peeping in to see what you're doing?" It didn't occur to Mr. Twit that windows were meant for looking out of, not looking into. And what do you think of that ghastly garden? Mrs. Twit was the gardener. She was very good at growing thistles and stinging nettles. "I always grow plenty of spiky thistles and plenty of stinging nettles," she used to say. "They keep out nasty, nosy little children." Near the house, you can see Mr. Twit's workshed. It's right down there. And to one side, there is a big dead tree, and they never have any leaves on it because it's dead. And not far from the tree, you can see the monkey cage. There are 4 monkeys in it, and they belong to Mr. Twit, and you're going to hear about them later. Chapter 15. Hug tight sticky glue. Look at that devious Mr. Twit. Once a week on Wednesdays, the Twits had bird pie for supper, and Mr. Twit caught the birds and Mrs. Twit cooked them. Mr. Twit was good at catching birds. On the day before Bird Pie Day, he would put the ladder up against the big dead tree, and he would climb into the branches with a big bucket of glue and a paintbrush. The glue he used was something called Hug Tight, and it was stickier than any other glue in the world. He would paint along the tops of all the branches, and then he'd walk away. And as the sun went down, birds would fly in from all around to roost in the big dead tree, and they didn't know, the poor things, that the branches were smeared with what?
With Hug Tight sticky glue.
That's right. What's he trying to do to the birds?
Cook them.
Sneaky old Mr. Twit. The moment they landed on the branch, Harry, their feet stuck. And that was that. And the next morning, which was Bird Pie Day, Mr. Twit would climb up the ladder again and he'd grab all the poor wretched birds that were stuck to the tree. It didn't matter what kind they were. Song, thrushes, blackbirds, sparrows, crows, little jenny wrens, robins, anything. They all went into the pot for Wednesday's bird pie supper. There it is, Harry. What's sticking out of the pie?
Feet.
Yeah, imagine having that for Wednesday night dinner.
We only person eat food.
That's right. Would you eat bird pie?
No. What's that? Is that my skin?
Yeah. Chapter 16. 4 sticky little boys. On one Tuesday evening, after Mr. Twit had been up the ladder and smeared the tree with hogtight, 4 little boys crept into the garden to look at the monkeys. They didn't care about the thistles and the stinging nettles, not when there were monkeys to look at. And after a while, they got tired of looking at the monkeys, so they explored further into the garden, and they found the ladder leaning against the big dead tree. They decided to climb it just for fun, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But the next morning, when Mr. Twit went out to collect the birds, what did he find?
Persons.
People, 4 boys. He found 4 miserable little boys sitting in the tree, stuck as tight as they could be by the seats of their pants to the branches. And there were no birds because the presence of the bird had scared them away. Mr. Twit was furious. As there are no birds for my pie tonight, it'll have to be boy pie instead. He started to climb the ladder. Boy pie might be better than bird pie. He went on, grinning horribly. More meat and not so many tiny little bones. The boys were terrified. He's going to boil us, cried one of us. He'll stew us alive, wailed the second one. He'll cook us with carrots, cried the third. But the 4th little boy, who had more sense than others, whispered, Listen, guys, I've got an idea. We're only stuck by the seat of our pants, so quick, unbutton your pants and slip out of them and fall to the ground. Mr. Twit had reached the top of the ladder and was just about to make a grab for the nearest boy when they all suddenly tumbled out of the tree and ran home with their naked bums winking at the sun. There you go. You can see them making a run for it. Got a question for you. Do you think Mr. Twit really would have eaten those boys? What do you think, Harry?
He might run after them.
That's right. And I got another question. What is the difference between being a twit and just being really daft or dumb? Is there a difference? See you next time.